Thank you so much, Program Director, for this opportunity. Really glad to be here to share some of our experiences. I still consider myself a novice in the area of crime and violence prevention, but we are really honored to be here and to share some of our, what I believe is more emerging learnings from our work in terms of the consortium that we have. You can see the organizations that are involved in terms of the program that I'm going to talk about, the Urban Trust of Namibia, then ourselves, Nalau, of course, and the Nankov Trust, which is sort of the umbrella organization for civil society in Namibia, then the Association of Local Authorities in Namibia, Alan, that represents sort of, while Nalau represents the professional staff in municipalities, Alan sort of represents the political side, the councillors. And then we, of course, have OSISA as our supporting partner that provides the resourcing. The first point really that I want to make is that it all started with a dialogue. So we really value occasions like this, and that's why I'm really humbled by being invited and also to share some of our emerging experiences. In 2010, the Urban Trust of Namibia hosted a dialogue on crime and violence prevention, and as a person who was really already fed up with all of this crime, and all the time we were just rushing, toying, and starting to do, demanding for stiffer sentences. I think what has been driving us during this dialogue is really a collective agency for us to hear something that is a bit refreshing other than just demanding for stiffer sentences or for demanding for the death penalty. And I think it was a refreshing experience because we had people from South Africa, from Kenya, and I think also from Latin American experience that just came and shared some of their experiences, and that really was the inspiration for us to say, okay, there is something that we can do other than just taking placards and toying in the streets. There is something positive that we can do. That was really the impetus that gave birth to our program. And so what we then decided is to look at a possibility of action advocacy. I think you call it evidence-based. But we said that let's do something on the ground. And based on what we get, we can then start to speak a level up in local government into national government. And that's really have been our approach. So it was local action combined with national level advocacy. And then we also talked about, because of this opportunity to listen to people who are at the cutting edge of global experiences, how can we bring in what we learn at dialogues like this into our local context and try to implement it, and again feedback what we are learning on the ground based on some of the cutting edge thinking into the local context, and that there is a feedback loop, and that's why we call it a global approach, sort of a combination of global and local. So it became our global approach. Then what we really, in terms of emerging learnings, is that in the partnership or in the alliance that we have a commitment to collaborate, but not so much focusing on coordinating each other, because many networks and collaboration attempts die when you start to impose a centralized program on partners. And therefore we said that we have a common vision on a particular program, but we allow partners to really take initiatives in terms of contributing within their sphere of influence and in their area of competence and mandate. And it is partly on this basis that Nalau hosted sort of the national consultation or conference on safety in communities. We invited all the mayors and chairpersons of management as well as the CEOs, and started to talk about what is really the role and mandate of local government in responding to issues of crime and violence. And it's also on this basis that the Polytechnic of Namibia is also running a course on crime and violence prevention. And we believe that all of these efforts are contributing to a common and shared vision. So we have really taken that approach that we collaborate, but we are also not restricting one another to take action as we are led by our mandate and the areas of influence that we have. We work in 3 pilot sites in Namibia, and we have selected them very deliberately based on the differences that they offer. The first one being Okanja Park, which is a suburb, a small location in the city of Windhoek. It does offer the challenge of service delivery by local authorities, because in this area specifically, you have a problem with basic sanitation services, roads, access by the police when crimes occur, or people have to go long distances to get access to a toilet facility. So it brings the challenge to local authorities. Then we have Rehoboth, which is about 80 kilometers from the capital city towards the south. What we have there is basically a dormitory town where most of the older people or adult people leave the town in the morning and also only arrive late in the evening. So you have a challenge with youth that are being left unsupervised during the day. So we look at that as a key response area. And then we have Oshikango, which is basically a border town towards the north, and that also has its own challenges. I'll skip that, and then I'll talk about the mother city connection, as I think one of the key connections that has helped us. Not only is CACP here based, and also APCOF, which has been really key resources for us, but you can also see there's another piece there that talks about where's the chicken, and these are also Cape Town-based academics who have written this book. I picked up this book while I was on a trip to Cape Town at the airport, and it really sort of summarizes the kind of understanding that we have gained through this process, that what you really look for in responding to crime and violence is the underlying issue, sort of asking where is the chicken in the issue. And I think in the book there's a story about these guys who fought, and they one beat up the other one, and they brought the case to the peace committee. The peace committee asked them what the issue was, and you are saying, look, this guy beat me up. The other one said, okay, I beat you up because every day I pass through your yard, you call me names and talk all kinds of things against me. But he said, you know, the reason why we are talking like that is because I have a small vegetable garden. And every time your chickens come in and mess up my vegetable garden, so I don't have vegetable to feed my children. So I think we discovered that the issue was really not a violence issue, but really a chicken problem. And there has been the chicken has been the metaphor for us. And we thank Mr. Cartwright and sharing in this book that experience. And that has been really the metaphor that has been helping us to say, let's look at the underlying causes of crime and violence and not just have the simplistic responses. One of the things that we are learning is really, as we engage local authorities, that everything rises and falls on leadership, in terms of engaging the political leadership, engaging the community, private sector, and civil society leadership, and also the professional criminal justice system leadership. And once these cycles can work together, you can find the fire really of responding to crime and violence Then we come to, I think the way that we have worked is first of all to look at the situation on the ground in terms of doing a safety audit and developing a strategy. So these 3 corners of the triangle, that we have a safety strategy on which then you develop a functional structure, And it works differently in different contexts. Some have a very formalized, like in Oshikango, a very formalized structure, while in Rehoboth it's more different forums that are working, some with the youth, some at the local authority level. So there's a more flexible functional structure that inspire action, and not again focusing on control, but really on how you can facilitate conversations and sharing of experience and knowledge. And then we focus then on inspiring a culture of collaboration that is really aimed at how do you sustain the solution in the future. And already we can see that in local authorities like Rehoboth, based on the inspiration from this project, they are at the moment busy creating a position within the local authority itself to employ somebody who will work on crime and violence issues as a community liaison officer. And there are other local authorities who are starting to take actions that would sustain the action beyond the project lifetime. Then I would want to conclude with this, which is sort of, I have borrowed this from the South African Cities Network, thinking around analytical framework for assessing city performance and integrate it sort of in a crime and violence context, but also from the United Cities and local government work on urban strategic planning, that when you have in the middle good urban governance that is characterized in the one quadrant by a supportive local economy that provides access to people to make a reasonable learning, then you have a basis of working in an integrated and systemic way around crime and violence prevention. You need to look at a progressive land markets, land and housing markets. In Namibia, we now have a position where we have what we call an affirmative repositioning movement, which is basically a political word for illegal land grabbing. And in fact, at the end of this week, there will be mass applications to all the local authorities by this movement that is sort of saying that you need to respond to our request for land by this date, otherwise we will affirm ourselves and position ourselves. And then you look at issues of social inclusion at the left there, and a safe and sustainable urban environment. So these are the 4 elements that we think as cities, as we respond, and as local authorities, if we can have a nice integration of all these issues in an integrated way, we can start to respond in a more holistic way to crime and violence prevention. There has been some of the kind of emerging lessons that we are learning, and we are really glad to be among such esteemed company to also learn further. I thank you.